Come and let us return to the Lord, for he has torn, but he will heal us. He has stricken, but he will bind us up. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up, that we may live in his sight. Life is eternal. In the Lord's providence, at different times, we all return to the Lord, and our eternal home, where we live in his sight and care. The heavenly doctrines for the new church state the ultimate purpose of creation is a heaven from the human race. Our life is begun in the world, but will be perpetuated in the spiritual world. Today we like to acknowledge Olivet's deceased members and friends, honor their faithful lives on earth, and provide the Olivet community with a proper time and space for sending away dear friends in the Lord's holy presence. When we think of human lives in the world, sufferings and hardships are weightier than blessings and delights. The word of the Lord often likens our lives to wandering in the harsh wilderness for 40 years. The Israelites suffered from the scarcity of food, frequent attacks of the enemy, and detrimental plagues. These hardships symbolize the true nature of life on earth, which consists of challenges, temptations, and conflicts. Yet as the Israelites entered Canaan, the promised land flowing with milk and honey, we enter the Lord's heaven at the end of this journey. The heavenly doctrines that describes the transition from a person on earth to an angel this way. When someone's body can no longer perform its functions in the natural world in response to the thoughts and affections of its spirit, which it derives from the spiritual world, then we say that the individual has died. The person, though, has not died at all. We are only separated from the physical nature that was useful to us in this world. The essential person is actually still alive, because we are not people because of our bodies, but because of our spirits. After all, it is the spirit within us that thinks, that thought and affection together make us the people we are. We can see then that when we die, we simply move from one world into another. We can understand why the heavenly doctrines define death as resurrection and a continuation of life. What a comfortable and confirmative teaching it is. Yet the actual transition and entry to the spiritual world are mostly unpleasant. The only gateway to eternal life, death, is usually painful and stressful to the deceased, and sorrowful and heartbreaking to the loved ones. It includes physical infirmity, illness, and disability. We patiently undergo a challenging period of life to enter the spiritual world. We often ask a question, why? Why did the Lord create us in this imperfect world first? Wouldn't it be better for us to be created and born as angels of heaven? All angels in heaven were not created as angels, but were born as humans and became angels after life passed in this world. Let me reiterate that the end in creation is a heaven from the human race. Besides our regeneration purpose, we must be born on earth. This means that the Lord could not create humans as the angels of the heavens. The heavenly doctrines teach us that for the first framework of the human form, or the human form itself, with each and every one of its constituents, comes from its first elements, continued from brain through nerves. This is the form into which a person comes after death. The material form which is added and superimposed in the world is not the human form per se, but it is products being added and superimposed to enable the person to perform useful services in the natural world, and also to take with him from the pure substance of the word, from fixed containing vessel for his spiritual constituents, and so continue and perpetuate his life. We can understand a few significant points from this passage. First, a material body is not a genuine part of living humans, but the conscious mind that consists of a spiritual substance derived from the soul. Our conscious and sensory mind descends to the material body and forms a connection in it, from which the natural body becomes a living form and can function. The sensory structure interwoven within the material body creates a living organism. As a result, a person's natural mind consists of spiritual substances and at the same time natural substances. It is owing to its spiritual substances that a person thinks and reflects, and not because of the natural substances. The natural substances are left behind when a person dies, but not the spiritual substances. Thus, after death, when the person becomes a spirit or angel, the same mind remains as it was in the world. Secondly, during the formation of conscious channels throughout the body, the covering or envelope, which is called limbus, is made. The epidermal envelope that encompasses the spiritual substances serve as a fixed vessel of spiritual substances. It is in consequence of such an envelope taken from the natural world that the spiritual body has a permanent existence. For the natural element is the outmost containing vessel. No spirit or angel was not first born a person in the world. Spirits and angels acquire spiritual bodies in perfect and complete human form. They have faces, eyes, ears, arms, feet, and more exquisite five senses. But all spiritual substances are not material or constant, despite their physical appearances. They are correspondences of angels' affections. This means that if the affections disappear, their spiritual bodies dissipate. Change of affections cannot provide a constant and fixed form or a body. Thus, a new procreation is neither possible nor a firm ultimate envelope that can be acquired in heaven. Thirdly, the essential mind is born with undeveloped faculty as a sin in its effort for integration with the body, human understanding and will, but with the capacity to grow. This unfinished formation process secures our human freedom because our capacities are open and undefined. Moreover, the enveloping spiritual substances with the finest natural substances allows a person to develop and form a unique identity and characteristics. Let us acknowledge those who lived faithfully their lives in the Word and their peculiar characteristics, which they have built freely. Mary Barles loved the church and studied at Olivet and in Brynathin. She was involved in different churches in her life, but always gravitated back to Olivet. Mary and her husband Lionel loved to travel to foreign countries and all 10 Canadian provinces. Dragon Balatic studied at the theological school in Brynathin, Pennsylvania, but most likely he was not ordained. He loved the science and the new church theology. He used to drive a hydrogen converted vehicle, which he transformed by himself. And he believed that the earth is flat. Ann Barber, together with Don, silently paid airfares for many teens to attend the Maple Leaf teen camp and helped some of them to settle in Toronto. She was very precise and determined, which led her to help others to the end. She was a qualified teacher and taught French at Olivet School. She lived at the nursing home in Parkdale, which was the original site of the former Olivet New Church. Hugh Beckett was a quiet listener. He was always with the children, and the children loved him. He loved hockey, he's a Canadian, animals, and square dance. Guess what? Where did he meet his wife, Chandra? He met her at a dance. After being married, the couple continued attending square dances and did so for over 50 years. Marian Bellinger taught grades 7 and 8 for many years at Olivet Day School and was the best teacher the students ever had. She kept a beautiful garden, used to arrange all the wedding flowers for Olivet weddings. She was a great teacher and gorgeous flower arranger. Adri met Mika, his wife, in Holland. Before their marriage, Mika had a near-death experience, but she didn't get any answer or explanation about it from her church. Adri brought her a book written by Swedenborg, which gave her the answer which she was seeking for. They immigrated and chose Toronto to give support to Olivet Church and school and give their children a new church education. Adri worked for TTC for 27 years. He often left church pamphlets and flyers on the passenger seats. He loved outreach and sharing the church with strangers. Corona Carswell was adopted by Miss Edina Carswell, who chose to do as a single mother. Corona married and had a daughter. Corona never worked outside of her home. After she died, she generously willed a monetary contribution to Olivet New Church, which will help Olivet to continue to operate. Norman Cooper attended the Olivet School and made many friends there. As an adult, he ran his own lawn cutting and snow removal company. He loved cruise nights, classic cars, and 50s rock and roll. He was known in the Olivet community for being a kind man. Bob Dellier played the organ for the church worship services and school chapels in the morning, teaching music lessons, leading churches singing practices, and organizing school concerts for the society. He helped Olivet have a tradition of both 4- and 6-part harmonies being sung during worship. And he really enjoyed the decorating for events. Bob organized and rented the popular and famous Sunday night hockey time at the Martin Grove rink. Bob Groot married to Rhea Groot, and he became a professor at Ryerson University. He came to the seminar series led by Reverend Harold Cranch at a local library. The correspondences between the spiritual and natural worlds observed him in his readings. Olivet welcomed his family, and Bob dove into church functions and activities and voluntary works, and joined the forces for the forming of Information Swedenborg. Desmond Holmes was a transplanted Englishman, though you may not notice his home from his accent. Too obvious. He enjoyed the Canadian lifestyle. He showed his love in supporting the boys attending Olivet School, and his wife's busy working and involvement at the church, though he was not a member. Keith Jimmery came to worship and all Sons events from Richmond Hill and Stouffville as long as he was able to drive. But he didn't say much at the service and event. If you ask a question, he just answered yes, no, that's it. Keith never married and loved lawn bowling in his free time. Ian Orchard was a tough soldier and served as an army sergeant for the reserves. He loved and was devoted to his mother, Marnie. He wrote a memorial to his mother, and then he had a heart attack and passed away on the same day of his mom's passing, just a few hours apart. Ian's ashes will be replaced in Marnie's casket. Marnie Orchard was proud of her genealogy because some ancestors translated the King James Version from the original language, and her uncle was a Sir Admiral Byrd who explored the North and South Poles. Marnie was determined that her children should get a new church education. One day when she was driving the children to school, she slipped on ice and broke her leg, but still managed to take the children to school. She enjoyed traveling and finally sailing after overcoming some fears. Carl Parker started his teaching career at Commerce School in Carndale and was called to become principal of Brynethin Elementary School. Carl and his family moved to California, where they lost everything they owned, including just finished the family home. in a huge fire neighborhood. Instead of feeling sad, the family used this difficult experience to reach out to others. He flourished with his skill sets in professions, including a pastor, a program coordinator for Tour de Trees, and an enthusiastic volunteer for many organizations. Victor Parker. His mother, Deborah Williams, described him as affectionate, full of youthful exuberance and enthusiasm, and a nature lover. He was polite and gentle. In 8th grade, he won an award for being a nice guy at Olivet School. You can try Cedric. Muriel Schnorr met her future husband, Maurice, at her friend's wedding. That very evening, she introduced him to her parents as her husband-to-be. It was love at first sight. She joined the Carmel Church and raised her 5 children, including Joanne Freer, in the new church. Later, she moved in with Joanne and Paul Freer and started attending Olivet. She had a brilliant sense of humor and loved going to church and new church teachings. Dave Starkey's early life began living in a log cabin. Then he went to high school and college in Brenathan, Pennsylvania. Dave and Margaret married in this building in April 1950, and the couple became an active part of the Olivet community. Dave served various roles, participated in many church functions, and organized the famous hot and spicy parties with his famous decorations. I love this party. On March 21st, Dave finished his meal, enjoying family dinner and conversation. He took his last breath on this earth. Dave was a nature lover. John Walker attended the Academy of the New Church High School in Brenathan, which he referred to as the best 2 years of his life. John worked as a certified engineering technologist and worked for Atomic Energy of Canada. He also owned a consulting firm for a decade. John retired early and focused on the property. He and Anne bought together. John loved to explore the world, and he believed in reincarnation. We will find out more about their life stories in the hall downstairs after service. The Lord let these unique individuals be born on earth so that they may acquire the necessary instrument to become angels, eternally preserve all their beautiful loves, wise thoughts, and special characteristics within themselves, and enjoy a blessed life in the Lord's care and love. The Lord said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord." Amen.